All right, welcome to the deep dive. You've given us some really fascinating source material here, and we're excited to jump right into it.
Yeah, looks really compelling.
Today, we're plunging into the world of Navajo skinwalkers. It's a figure that's, deeply rooted in folklore, but also seems tied to some pretty chilling modern reports.
Absolutely, there's a lot there.
And our goal here in this deep dive is to really unpack what your sources are telling us, to pull out the key ideas about what these figures are and why they hold such a feared place in legend.
Understanding the source perspective.
The sources mention the Navajo name, Yi-Naud-Lushi.
Right.
And that name itself is quite descriptive, isn't it? It translates roughly to, with it he goes on all fours.
It really paints a picture from the outset.
And your material, right from the start, it makes this really crucial distinction. It's foundational, I think.
Yeah, what's that?
Skinwalkers are described not as, ghosts or spirits. They're described as living people.
Living people, that's unexpected for many, maybe.
People who've deliberately chosen a dark path. They're presented as witches or shamans, sure, but specifically those who've gained powers through really dark taboo rituals.
Making them, according to these accounts, some of the most feared entities in Native American culture.
It's a powerful starting point, a living person making this kind of transformation. So how does that even happen? How does someone become a skinwalker, according to the sources you shared?
Well, what's particularly striking in the source material is the description of that path. It's not accidental. It's presented as a deliberate and frankly horrifying choice.
Okay.
The core act that's described is committing a terrible taboo, killing a close relative, often a sibling or maybe even a parent.
Wow.
Yeah, this act is framed as the ultimate betrayal, a really twisted way to gain power or pledge loyalty to some kind of dark forces.
Yeah,
And beyond that initial horrific act, the sources talk about engaging in deeply taboo rituals.
Rituals, like what?
Well, they often involve disturbing elements like grave dirt, human remains, even blood things that are absolutely forbidden in traditional Navajo ways.
Okay, so really crossing sacred lines.
Exactly. And it's usually not a solitary thing either. The material suggests they get involved with a secret witch cult or society. These often operate, in remote, hidden places away from the main communities.
Hidden groups.
Right. And the insight here is clear. This transformation, as the sources really emphasize, it grants immense power, yes, but it comes at this absolute permanent cost. The loss of their humanity, their soul, essentially. According to these beliefs, once you become a skinwalker, there's just no going back.
The permanence of that choice.
Right.
The severing from your own humanity. That detail alone is pretty chilling.
It is.
So, okay, they undergo this transformation. What kinds of abilities do these figures then gain? Your source material lays out a really formidable range, doesn't it? It goes beyond just changing shape.
Exactly. That's one of the key insights from the sources. Their power set is incredibly diverse and terrifying. Right.
The ability to shapeshift is central, of course. They can reportedly transform into various animals, wolves, coyotes, foxes, bears, owls, others, often by wearing the actual hide or skin of that creature. That's part of the name, right? Skinwalker?
Okay, makes sense. But you said it's more than that.
Oh yeah, much more. The sources detail their ability to influence the mind. They can reportedly cause hallucinations, induce this intense paralyzing fear, or even drive victims towards insanity.
Psychological warfare, almost.
Absolutely. And then there's the deeply unsettling ability of voice mimicry.
I read that part.
The sources mention them perfectly imitating the voices of loved ones. Imagine hearing your child or your parent calling you from just outside the house late at night to lure you out.
That detail about the voice mimicry just sends a shiver down your spine. It really does.
It's described as a potent psychological weapon in the sources. They're also said to possess extreme physical capabilities like incredible speed and stealth, moving so fast they're just a blur, or completely silently. Hard to track, hard to see coming.
Very. And sometimes the accounts describe them as not fully shifted, sort of caught between forms.
What does that look like?
Like a deformed human, but with animalistic features, maybe glowing eyes, claws, or limbs that are just wrong, unnatural.
Okay, that's disturbing.
And finally, the sources also mention the ability to inflict direct harm through curses and hexes, bringing sickness, misfortune, or even afflicting entire families, sometimes across generations.
Oh, so it's a whole package. Physical transformation, mental manipulation, stealth, speed, and dark magic.
It's a comprehensive and deeply unsettling set of powers attributed to them in these accounts, yeah.
Given that range of abilities, then, it really begs the question,
Yeah.
Where do the sources say these encounters are most likely to happen, or where they gained this notoriety? The material you provided points to some very specific spots.
Yes, the sources really do highlight the geographic dimension of these reports. It's not just anywhere.
So where's ground zero, so to speak?
Well, the most famous location, definitely brought up in your sources, is Skinwalker Ranch in Utah.
Right, heard of it. Lots of strange stories there.
Exactly. The material details a whole range of reported paranormal activity there, sometimes beyond just potential Skinwalker sightings, too.
Like what else?
The sources mention accounts of creatures seen walking upright like a man before suddenly just dropping to all fours and running off.
Okay, that fits the goes on all fours idea.
It does. There are also many reports of intense glowing eyes, often red or yellow, just watching from the darkness.
Creepy.
And cattle mutilations are detailed too, described as having almost surgical precision, but weirdly lacking blood.
Surgical, but no blood. Strange.
Very strange. Also, mysterious symbols appearing on the ground, seemingly out of nowhere. That's another recurring report from the ranch.
Symbols. Any idea what they mean?
The sources don't usually specify, just that they appear mysteriously. And perhaps most strangely, the sources connect this location to reports of UFOs and even alleged dimensional portals opening in the sky.
UFOs and portals. So it gets even weirder than skinwalkers, potentially.
It seems the phenomena reported there are quite broad, and the sources even note that the US government had a secret program. I think it was described as Project BASAS.
BASAS.
Yeah, specifically to investigate phenomena at the ranch.
So government interest even enters the picture, according to these sources. That adds another layer.
It certainly does. But then, of course, you have the heartland of the legend itself, the Navajo Nation.
Spanning parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Utah.
And Colorado, yeah. Your sources describe hundreds of reported sightings and, whispered tales from the remote canyons and desert landscapes there.
More grounded sightings, maybe?
Often, yes. Things like hearing the voice of a deceased relative calling you from the trees. That's a commonly reported phenomenon described in the sources.
The voice mimicry again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or seeing a coyote standing or walking upright like a human.
Unsettling visual.
Definitely. And finding tracks, this is a classic sign, describe tracks that abruptly transition from human footprints to animal paw prints right in the middle of a stride.
Like they shifted while running.
That's the implication in the accounts, yes.
Oh.
The sources also really underscore the deep cultural reluctance among many Navajo people to even discuss skinwalkers publicly.
Why is that?
It seems rooted in a belief that simply speaking the name or talking too much about them can actually attract their attention, draw them to you.
That belief itself tells you just how much fear surrounds them, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The fear is palpable in those descriptions.
So, okay, if you were in a place where these things are reportedly active, like the ranch or parts of the Navajo Nation, what signs? What should you watch out for, according to your sources? What might indicate a skinwalker is nearby?
The sources list several pretty unsettling indicators, things that would definitely set you on edge. Hearing voices at night is a major one, especially if it sounds like someone you know, but the sound is coming from somewhere unnerving, like deep in the woods or right outside your window when no one should be there.
Okay, the mimicry again. Very creepy.
Finding those strange transitional tracks we just talked about, human morphing into animal prints, that's presented as a direct physical sign.
Hard evidence, potentially.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
The sources also suggest paying attention to people acting unusually strange.
People? You mean they can look human?
They can reportedly disguise themselves as humans, yes.
Yeah.
But the idea is that subtle details might be off something in their eyes, their movements, maybe their proportions just seem wrong.
Like an uncanny valley effect.
Something like that, yeah. A feeling that something isn't right. Also, a strong foul smell, almost putrid, like decaying meat or something just rotting nearby. That's associated with their presence in the sources.
A specific smell. Okay.
And finally, maybe more subtly, sudden, inexplicable sickness. Or overwhelming feelings of terror that just come out of nowhere. Or even an uncharacteristic streak of really intense bad luck.
Bad luck. How's that linked?
It could be attributed to a skinwalker's curse, according to these accounts, or maybe their psychological influence on you. Those are definitely signs that would make you want to, get inside and lock the doors.
Absolutely. Yikes. So with all these terrifying aspects described, is there any defense? Can they actually be countered or defeated according to the legends your sources explore?
It's not hopeless, according to the lore. The sources do offer some insights into how they might be dealt with, at least within the framework of Navajo belief and folklore.
Okay, what kind of insights?
Importantly, confronting a skinwalker, according to these legends, isn't really for the average person. It's not something you or I should try. It's typically described as requiring the specific knowledge and power of trained Navajo medicine men, or shamans. They are said to have the spiritual capability needed to counter the magic, maybe defeat them, or potentially even reverse their curses.
So you need a specialist, basically, a traditional expert.
Exactly. But there's also a fascinating belief mentioned in the sources about their name.
Their name?
Their true human name. Knowing and speaking a skinwalker's original human name is described as a potent weapon.
Really? How potent?
In some accounts, just speaking their true name aloud is said to have the power to kill them instantly.
Wow, just the name itself.
Yeah, it really highlights the cultural significance of identity and the power believed to be held within a true name in that context.
Fascinating. Any other defenses mentioned?
Other protective measures encounters talked about include using specific traditional elements like white ash, certain medicinal herbs are also mentioned, or engaging in specific protective ritual ceremonies.
So traditional protection.
Right. These are presented as ways to ward off their influence or their attacks.
This has been a genuinely deep dive into some intense and really detailed source material. We've unpacked what skinwalkers are presented as, crucially, not spirits, but living people twisted through these dark acts.
Right, the transformation process.
We've looked at the horrifying requirements to become one, that extensive list of powers they reportedly possess, shape-shifting, mind games, mimicry.
The physical prowess, the
The
curses.
specific locations where they're reportedly seen, like the famous Skinwalker Ranch and across the vast Navajo Nation. We covered the unsettling signs that might indicate their presence,
The tracks, the voices, the smell.
and the legendary methods, often involving traditional knowledge for countering them, like using their true name.
And I think the overarching insight from really digging into these sources is understanding why this topic resonates so powerfully, why it's spread beyond just folklore circles.
Now, why is that, based on the material?
It seems to seamlessly blend that deeply rooted Native American belief system with terrifying creature lore. Then you add compelling modern eyewitness reports, the whole mystery surrounding places like Skinwalker Ranch.
And even hints of government investigation, as the sources mentioned.
Exactly, and you end up with this narrative that taps into really fundamental human fears and fascinations culture, the supernatural, mystery, and that unnerving possibility that some legends might actually intersect with unexplained reality.
Yeah, engaging with these sources really does give you a unique window, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Into a powerful cultural belief system and how that belief interacts with phenomena people report experiencing. It shows how ancient folklore isn't just, history locked in books.
Yeah.
It can feel very much alive when it seems to manifest in these strange events described today.
It really does.
Yeah.
So thinking about everything we've covered from the sources you provided, here's maybe something to mull over. How do deeply held cultural beliefs, like the ones surrounding skinwalkers, shape how we understand unexplained phenomena? And what does it mean when those very specific culturally rooted beliefs seem to align so closely with reported real-world sightings and bizarre events?
That's a really interesting question to end on. Belief shaping perception, or perception confirming belief, or something stranger happening altogether.
Exactly. It leaves you with a lot to ponder about culture, belief, and the edges of the known.